Coming soon to Arizona PBS.
Arizona is leading the way in cutting-edge scientific research in our very own backyard. Join us on Catalyst, the show that explores new advancements, technologies, and innovations at Arizona State University that are shaping the future for tomorrow and beyond. Catalyst, Wednesdays at 9, right here on Arizona PBS.
Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from
Support comes from Citizens Clean Elections Commission, your source for unbiased voter information. Watch an upcoming debate and vote informed this election. Visit azcleanelections.gov/debates for dates and ways to watch.
From the Cronkite Studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Today's Supreme Court ruling just coming out, a tremendous success, a tremendous victory for the American people.
A victory that might split the American people. The Supreme Court upholds the president's travel ban.
Training is just as important as the decision to own a gun. This Arizona firearm class is for women, by women.
An uncertain future. Republicans are ready to act on the immigration crisis, but the measure may face a wall of no votes.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Victoria Valenzuela.
And I'm Raneem Hamed. Thank you for joining us. Today, the Supreme Court ruled that President Trump's travel ban is constitutional. The travel restriction has been deemed by opponents as a Muslim ban. President Trump says the ruling is a win for the American people. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell agrees.
There were several earlier iterations of the so-called travel ban. I think the administration finally got it right. The Supreme Court agreed with that, and I think this is a decision the president should feel good about, and I'm comfortable with, even though I didn't care for the earlier version.
In January of 2017, President Trump signed an executive order that would be known as the travel ban. At that time, he said it was needed to keep out radical Islamic terrorists.
It was a 5-4 ruling, the conservatives allowing the ban while the court's 4 liberal justices dissented. Chief Justice John Roberts issues a nearly 40-page opinion. He wrote in part, "The text says nothing about religion, and President Trump has the right to deny access to the United States on the national security grounds his proclamation identifies." Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote the dissenting opinion saying the United States of America is a nation built on the promise of religious liberty. The court's decision today fails to safeguard that fundamental principle.
This travel ban restricts travelers from 7 countries. They are Syria, Iran, Yemen, Somalia, Libya, North Korea, and Venezuela.
The travel ban wasn't the only major ruling made today by the Supreme Court.
The court also sided with faith-based pregnancy centers in California. The justices ruled against a California law saying anti-abortion pregnancy centers do not have to inform women about family planning services, including abortion. Religiously affiliated pregnancy centers said the law forced them to deliver a message that was in direct conflict with their mission. From D.C. to Arizona, Cronkite News has team coverage of these 2 landmark rulings.
We begin with reporter Danny Coble in the nation's capital.
Stop lying to women! Stop lying to women!
That was the scene on the plaza outside the court where protesters were waiting for the justices to hand down their final decisions of this term. While pro-choice advocates chanted, pro-life advocates welcomed the court's ruling in the California Pregnancy Crisis Center's case. In a 5-4 decision, the court said that the law that forces the anti-abortion pregnancy centers to tell their clients about the state services, including abortions, violates their First Amendment rights.
A huge win for life and a huge win for free speech issues.
But a loud contingent of pro-choice activists at the court vowed to continue fighting.
This is what democracy looks like. That is what hypocrisy looks like.
The crowds grew as the court upheld President Donald Trump's ban on travel from predominantly Muslim countries. The same 5-4 court said that the president's right to safeguard the country and the way the ban was carried out outweighed any claims that he was targeting Muslims. Protesters spoke out in heartbreak and in anger against the Supreme Court's decision.
I am heartbroken. It's taking so much in me to hold back the tears that I want to cry.
Over 80 civil rights groups, along with members of Congress, also protested outside the court this morning against the Supreme Court's decision to uphold the travel ban.
The Supreme Court's going to do this, and it's up to Congress to pass the Freedom of Religion Act, which would ban any law which would prohibit people from coming to this country because of their religious views. Congress has to act. We have to overturn what the Supreme Court has done. We cannot let this stand.
Now the Supreme Court still has one more day to release their final decisions of this term. In Washington, Danny Coble, Cronkite News.
Several Arizona groups denounced today's Supreme Court ruling in favor of the travel ban. Reporter Nicole Hernandez spoke with some of the groups about how the ban will affect Arizonans.
Although the travel ban has been in effect for some time, today's news was still disheartening for many minority groups. I spoke with a woman who has family from Somalia, which is one of the countries included in the ban.
It just really saddens me because my parents who were born in Somalia and a lot of my family members are in Somalia who are trying to come here. And now that it's official, it just really sucks because they're all out there suffering.
This is reality for people trying to flee the 7 countries included in the travel ban, and the current political climate impacts refugees already here.
Sometimes when I hop on the light rail or go to a restaurant wearing my hijab, people will look at me.
In the wake of today's Supreme Court decision, Muslim and refugee communities say they're worried for what the future holds. They say policies like these change how they're treated in their communities.
When the administration does something like that, it counters everything that the Muslim community and other communities are working within their own communities to integrate them.
But supporters say the ban is necessary to secure the U.S. border.
It shouldn't be the United States' job to be the sole police force. And I think from the standpoint of war-torn areas, without a stable, centralized government, you got to be careful on the vetting process.
The ban does not stop any visitors traveling to the U.S. on legitimate business or leisure travel, but refugees will not be accepted into the country.
There's other ways to provide safety. It's not these people want to leave their country. They don't. They want to stay. That's their country of origin.
In Phoenix, Nicole Hernandez, Cronkite News.
In today's other ruling, the High Court made a decision in a case that set free speech against a medical patient's right to know all of their options. A California law that required anti-abortion crisis pregnancy centers to provide information on abortions was struck down. Reporter Emily Richardson explains how this decision could affect Arizona.
This morning, the Supreme Court voted that requiring crisis pregnancy centers to disclose more information about their licensing and the reproductive care they don't provide was unconstitutional. Anti-abortion proponents are saying it's a win for free speech, but others are concerned about how this will affect women's health care.
The government cannot compel you to talk about a message that contradicts your reason for existence. It was really a victory for everyone, pro-life and pro-choice.
We're entering into a territory in which patients are possibly being lied to and then not going to get the care that they need.
The California FACT Act required unlicensed crisis pregnancy centers to disclose if they were not a licensed medical facility or if they did not have a licensed medical provider supervising their services.
The law did. It required these disclaimers in up to 13 different languages in a very specific font size on any sort of advertising. So if there was an advertisement that said something like pregnant, need help, it would have to take up an enormous amount of space, and it made advertising almost impossible.
They are pretty much operating without any sort of real regulation.
If the pro-life pregnancy center is employing healthcare professionals who are providing medical services, they are required to be licensed by the state.
The act also required clinics that don't provide a full range of reproductive care to inform their patients that the state provides access to things such as prenatal care, contraception, and abortions. Planned Parenthood is concerned that the removal of this will cause serious issues when it comes to the care women receive.
We will see people be pushed to the margins and end up going underground or back alley, and once again endangering their lives to do so.
Pro-life pregnancy centers are providing needed services, and women are grateful for the services that pregnancy centers are providing.
According to the Alliance Defending Freedom, this court ruling could prevent states such as Arizona from passing laws similar to California's in the future. In Phoenix, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
Owning a gun and taking the proper training is not cheap. A local business is taking interest in educators and making sure prices are affordable for everyone. Allison Snell follows along with the training.
As we see school shooting deaths across the country, one local businesswoman is doing her best to train educators and others on how to protect themselves. A sound familiar to Sunny Johnson, who teaches gun education classes. With recent school shooting incidents, she wants to reach out to educators.
School employees, a larger discount because I want them to be safe. They are watching our kids.
Knowing how to stay safe starts by knowing what to do when something goes wrong.
A flight and fight mode. We go through and tell them, about boarding up the doors and where to hide the kids, or, lock the doors. If the door is unlocked, then the person's going to go in. Another safety for them to act on. So just teaching them certain things that maybe they forgot or they don't know about yet.
Students of Johnson's classes say they learn a lot, including Patty Thompson, who is taking the class after being burglarized.
I just think the world is out of control. You get your confidence, you learn about the guns, about bullets, how to hold them, security, how to shoot.
Johnson wants to take away the fear surrounding weapons.
I like to make sure that women feel safe and comfortable.
And that's easier when you can learn more about guns.
We go through the book, they learn all the process, shooting the firearm. We do a dry fire here, and then they take their tests. I take them to the range and do their battery. It's very empowering. And to empower the women, it's just very rewarding.
State lawmakers tried to pass a law allowing teachers to be armed back in 2012, but it did not pass. At the digital desk, Allison Snell, Cronkite News.
Tomorrow is the morning of truth for House Republicans.
Coming up on Cronkite News, it's time to vote. Will the latest attempt at immigration reform survive? Why one Arizona representative says tomorrow's tally is giving her heartburn.
Science, technology, engineering, and Amazon. Later we see what Amazon is doing to inspire kids with hands-on learning this summer.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles.
In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
I'm Judy Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
Just days after the House shot down a GOP-backed plan for immigration reform, lawmakers are expected to try again tomorrow.
But even House leaders appear skeptical that they'll have any better luck this time around, as Pat Pobletti reports from our Washington bureau.
House Republicans met once again behind closed doors this morning in an effort to try and hammer out a compromise on immigration. But as Congresswoman Martha McSally told me as that meeting broke up, lawmakers are still working through it on the eve of the vote.
Always good to have a family conversation.
And that is about as optimistic as it got today after House Speaker Paul Ryan gathered his caucus together to try and move forward the stalled immigration package. The latest version of the bill would create a new class of farm worker visa that would let immigrants stay in the U.S. for up to 3 years, and it would require that businesses use the E-Verify system to certify the citizenship of anyone they hire. Even with the new additions to the bill, Ryan did not sound confident about the bill's fate.
We have a big conference with big different views in districts
What we have here is the seeds of consensus that will be gotten to, hopefully now, but if not later.
The additions are aimed at getting support from more conservative members of the caucus, who joined with Democrats last week to kill a more stringent version of the bill. After that vote, President Donald Trump tweeted that the Republicans should stop wasting their time on immigration reform, saying that they would be better off waiting until after the November elections. Ryan chalked that up to frustration.
The president was communicating his frustration with the Senate, and that's what some of our members communicate, the same frustration, which is we get something through the House, and you're still going to need at least 9 Democrat votes to break filibuster. So that is frustrating to our members, because obviously this is something that can be filibustered, and they expect would be filibustered.
But today's additions to the bill might not be enough to placate GOP lawmakers who have voiced concerns about the bill's protections for Dreamers. Arizona Congresswoman Debbie Lesko voted for the bill that was considered last week. After this morning's meeting, she said that while she approved of the E-Verify amendment, she remained undecided on how she will vote tomorrow.
I'm having some heartburn with the compromise bill because it gives a pathway to parents of citizenship.
Will you be voting for it then?
We'll have to see if there's any changes made.
I spoke with Congressman Paul Gosar of Prescott, who's on the record as saying that he will not support any immigration measure that includes protections for Dreamers. I asked him if the E-Verify amendment would be enough to get him to change his vote, and he told me no, not at all. In Washington, Pat Pobletti, Cronkite News.
Still ahead on Cronkite News, it is often ranked as the top pediatric hospital in Arizona.
Tonight, more acknowledgement for Phoenix Children's Hospital. A national publication finds that PCH is one of the best-ranked kids' medical centers in the entire country.
Our current temperature is 109 degrees, but stay tuned because on this day in 1990, we hit a record high. We'll have that for you after the break.
I'm Matt Berry, ESPN Sports Center anchor and graduate of ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication. With its bachelor's and master's degrees in sports journalism, the Cronkite School is preparing the next generation of sports journalists to tell stories that matter, stories that excite, inspire, and inform. Cronkite immerses students in covering sports at all levels in one of the country's top sports markets. It's this hands-on experience under the guidance of award-winning sports media veterans that shape the top journalists of tomorrow.
If you're looking for one show that tells you what happened that day in the world of business, it's NBR.
We saw a classic shipwreck.
Nordstrom's opening stores.
Triple-digit gains.
Crude climbs.
We're there to help our audience find new investment ideas.
The market still has room to go up.
Nightly Business Report is the longest-running business television program in history.
Weeknights at 10:30 on Arizona PBS.
Today is the 28th anniversary of the hottest day in Phoenix. On June 26, 1990, the high temperature reached 122 degrees. It was so hot that the airport had to ground flights because planes couldn't take off in the heat.
Not quite that hot today, but it is still sizzling out here.
Jordan Daphnis is in today with your weather forecast.
That's right, we're currently sitting at 109 degrees, and so though it may feel like you're melting, it's not quite as hot as it was for Phoenicians in the past on this day 28 years ago. Let's take a look across the state. We've got 96 in Prescott, 92 in the Grand Canyon, 104 in Page, and 109 in Lake Havasu City. Now I want to take a look across the nation. On the East Coast, you can see there's a lot of precipitation, and though you may be jealous of that precipitation, don't be, because I have friends in Orlando who told me they can't even make it to the water park for a full day because they get rained out. Now here in Arizona, you can head to the water park any day for the next 7 days. We've got 110 tomorrow, 109 on Thursday, 106 this weekend, and we'll jump back up to 109 on Monday.
One Valley company is using the robots in its warehouse to inspire students. Reporter Andrew Christensen takes us to Amazon for STEM training.
Science, technology, engineering, and math, all the skills students at Camp Amazon needed to complete challenges with robots. Screeching metal, a sound a robotic arm makes when it's being operated. Students used models to learn about the latest technology at Camp Amazon.
What really brought me out here is I would like to help my kids, well, not my kids, but like the kids back at my community.
Camp Amazon is something that we've done for the first time right here in Arizona. What the ultimate goal is to get students, which is kind of the next generation, involved with innovative activities that are in the STEM field. So.
Hosted at the Amazon Fulfillment Center, it is a partnership between Amazon and Science Foundation Arizona. Their goal? Get students from underrepresented groups involved in STEM.
We know that because of automation and the ability to use technology in our everyday world, we need students who are familiar with it and to know not only how to play video games and to search for things on the internet, but also know how to program and build the tools that are used here within the Amazon Fulfillment Center.
To students from Gila Crossing Community School and Cesar Chavez High School, Camp Amazon is more than just an experience. It's an opportunity to pass on knowledge to future generations.
I hope to learn that, like teamwork, is really helpful, these types of situations.
In addition, campers got a tour of the Amazon Fulfillment Center where they were taught to package items and discovered the various ways Amazon uses STEM in the real world. Amazon surprised Cesar Chavez High School with a $5,000 donation during the camp. In the broadcast center, Andrew Christensen, Cronkite News.
Being a patient in a hospital is never easy.
And it can be especially tough for a child. Next on Cronkite News, the Phoenix Children's Hospital gets a special recognition for providing top medical care to kids and their families.
I like working for Cronkite News because it gives us the opportunity to find a different angle on the same stories that every other news outlet is covering across Arizona. As students, we have the opportunity to cover issues all across the state of Arizona.
It gives me a good chance to sharpen my skills, improve my skills, learn the techniques in a newsroom and in the programs and teamwork and technology, getting me prepared for the real world. And at the same time, I think we do a great job, make some great stories, do great journalism for the city of Phoenix and state of Arizona.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
Frightening new statistics about kids and an opioid medication.
Young children are getting sick after being poisoned by a drug used to fight the epidemic. This study looks at a decade period where more than 11,000 calls were made to U.S. poison control centers because kids were exposed to a drug called buprenorphine. It is a prescription medication that helps wean people off of opioids. 86% involved children under the age of 6. Almost all the cases were accidental exposure because parents did not safely dump their prescription. The study's author recommends more education needs to be done about disposing unused medications.
Cronkite News is dedicated to covering the opioid crisis in Arizona and nationwide. You can watch our documentary, Hooked RX, From Prescription to Addiction, and find resources for getting help online at hookedrx.org. A big announcement today for Phoenix Children's Hospital.
The hospital is celebrating their 35th anniversary as well as a spot on the U.S. News & World Report's Best Hospital list. Jordan Daphnis has the details on the ranking.
189 children's hospitals were surveyed across the nation and ranked in 10 specialties. Phoenix Children's Hospital was ranked in all 10 categories, with their highest being number 9 in cardiology and heart.
Our 6th child was born with a critical congenital heart defect, so he required 3 open heart surgeries just to survive.
For parents like Molly Wright who have a child in Phoenix Children's Hospital, the level of care is more important than the ranking.
To know that our son was going to live because he was receiving care from these doctors here, it means everything.
Being in the hospital is not easy for anyone involved, but Wright says Phoenix Children's Hospital tries to make it easier.
His doctors would come in and they would pitch balls to him and he could hit from his bed. And so they knew that he needed to have some joy even while he was here in the hospital, and that was a way to let him have fun and start to feel normal again.
Phoenix Children's Hospital is one of only 23 children's hospitals in the country to be ranked in all 10 specialties.
The work that is involved in accomplishing the U.S. News & World Report rankings is focusing on quality, looking at the systems that we have at the hospital to provide care for the most complex patients that we have, and then also looking at reputation, how Phoenix Children's Hospital compares to other major children's hospitals from a reputation standpoint.
Osley says improvement starts with the people who work with patients every day.
The nurses in the neonatal intensive care unit identified that babies would dislodge or lose their breathing tubes, and so they took it upon themselves to work within the neonatal intensive care unit to decrease that risk.
The hospitals are scored in 3 categories: outcomes, process, and structure. Each of those make up 1/3 of the score, according to the study's methodology. In the broadcast center, Jordan Daphnis, Cronkite News.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, hear about the possible long-term psychological harm resulting from kids being separated from their families, and learn about Arizona's connections to deadly roadside bombs used in Iraq. That's on the next Arizona Horizon.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next NewsHour, new threats to ancient wonders on one of the world's most remote places, saving Easter Island. That's Tuesday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thank you for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Support for Arizona PBS comes from viewers like you and from
Yupa's Thai Kitchen in Tempe features fresh, authentic Thai cuisine and vegetarian Thai dishes served in a homeland-style decor atmosphere. Open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week. Information at 480-839-0576.
On American Experience. The stakes could not have been higher.
The United States